The program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's a cool, crisp autumn morning. The full moon is giving way to the golden sun. This is Safari Live. Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a beautiful sunrise safari. It's lovely to have you all with us, and I'm sorry about the few gremlins that we had this morning. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Senzo, and we're going to try and see if we can't find you lots and lots of animals. Now remember, this is a live interactive experience, so we would love to hear from all of you, and you can get hold of us on #SafariLive on Twitter. Well, that's pretty much the housekeeping for this morning, but what we have got, which is quite exciting, is Ribbon at the Den. So this is the first time I've seen Ribbon at the Den for a number of weeks, and there you can see she's fast asleep at the entrance. She's just taking it very, very easy this morning. She seems like she's had a long night of moving around and decided it's time to have a little nap with the young ones. Now, I've only seen one cub so far. I haven't seen the second one. They are around the back of Ribbon. So what I think I might do is just reposition us slightly, because at this stage we can't actually see the cubs suckling. They are suckling on the other side there. But isn't this exciting to see her back here? I'm very, very excited that she's here, because we were a bit concerned that potentially the hyena den had moved. I know Jamie spent most of her morning yesterday trying to find what was going on and trying to see where the hyenas could have gone to. But it was a very nice surprise to come around the corner this morning and find Ribbon and one of the cubs outside. And now she's gone towards the den and is lying down. You can hear she's listening to the impalas rutting in the background. So the male impalas have been really making a lot of noise this morning. They've been shouting and chasing each other, and poor Ribbon is trying to get some rest. Has had no chance because of all the noise they've been making. So you can see she almost looks thoroughly unimpressed by this roaring and grunting and snorting that's been going on all around her. Now, for those of you who are regular viewers and that were sort of watch most days and are wondering how we did yesterday afternoon, we did our TV rehearsal, and that's why we weren't on air yesterday afternoon. It went very, very well. We had a visual of Hyena, which was quite nice. So he came back yesterday afternoon, and the two Cheetah brothers were also around, and we saw them going north from Cheetah Plains. So it was quite a productive afternoon. So hopefully this morning there will be lots more that we can go and try and show. So after this hyena, I think I'll go and follow up on Hyena. But while we're sitting, let me just try and see if I can't reposition so we can see the little ones. I'm a little bit concerned that we haven't seen both of the cubs yet. I would have thought that they would have both been out. I'm quite surprised that it's just the one at this stage, but I'll try and see. Maybe when we go around we'll see both those little heads pop out. So while we do that, let's go across to Tayla. I need to fix my hair McCurdy, and so she can say good morning.
Good morning, everybody, and of course welcome to another sunrise safari. Again, just apologies for the technical difficulties, but that doesn't matter because we're here and we've got so many animals to show you. My name is Tayla, and on camera with me today is Sebastian, and I don't know which way to look, left, right, wildebeest, giraffe. Which one would you prefer to see? Should we do giraffe first? Let's do giraffe first. Now, as Tristan has just mentioned, #SafariLive with any of your questions on Twitter, of course, and hopefully we're going to see some exciting things. And first off, my favorite thing was a very brief silhouette of a giraffe, which was quite lovely. But we have an entire tower of them moving around here. And this one that you can see very quickly is a female. And she's hungry. She is eating much breakfast this morning. This actually might be quite nice for Steph when he gets going to try and come and do a walk around here. To be surrounded by giraffe on foot is probably one of my favorite things. Now, she looks like she could be carrying a calf. I just was looking as to how round she is, and her stomach is dropped quite low. Can you see that? Look at that big bulge. So I reckon that there is a little calf inside there. That's quite exciting. It's nice to see that even though we're coming into winter, we're still able to see, well, we'll potentially see some more life throughout the year. So I don't know how far along she would be, but that's a big bulge, and I reckon she... Whoa, hang on. We've got a running giraffe now, which is an unusual sight. You don't normally get to see that. They don't normally run for potentially for long distances, unless I suppose they're going across the big open plains. But isn't that quite lovely? And the birds are just starting to wake up too. Should we have a little listen while we watch a giraffe disappear off into the distance? That is absolutely beautiful. Now, Sebastian, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go forward a little bit. I'll tell you why. Because it's the most interesting giraffe that her ossicones are pointing inwards, and we can get a silhouette of it. So let's try and see. This could be quite nice. I'm going to park like that. Oh no, her ossicones are not pointing in. Oh no, there's one that looks a bit skew. Look at that. Now, I thought for a moment that both ossicones were pointing inwards, but that doesn't seem to be the case this morning. But they definitely are not aligned, as you can see over there. Now, Red, you're wondering how long is a giraffe's tongue? Very long. It's well over 30 centimeters. If you take your ruler and you add another sort of 10 centimeters to that, a third of your ruler, that's how long a giraffe's tongue is, which is pretty incredible. They must have one of the longest tongues out there, and it's important for browsers, I think, especially browsers, to have long tongues, because it allows them to sort of, well, twist their tongue around a branch and pull back and extract all the leaves that way. Kudu have got very long tongue too. You don't often get to see it, but every now and then, if you are lucky, you'll see them pop it out of their mouths and pull off some leaves as well. But I think giraffe, in terms of removing leaves from a tree, they're probably the best demonstrators at that. But today, this giraffe was actually not utilizing its tongue at all, and none of them were. They were sort of just picking very gently at the leaves that they wanted. And they will do that, especially when we have had a lot of rain. There will be a lot of growth on the plants, not just through, that we're seeing coming through with the grass, but there'll be a lot of new sweet leaves and just popping up, and that's what they want to go for. Ideally, the animals want to eat the best food that they can, and so they can be quite picky about it. But of course, Tristan is sitting with a beautiful spotted creature, not a leopard. Perhaps we'll have one later, but let's go back to him and those adorable cubs.
Well, Tayla, if I get a leopard later as well, it'll be an incredible start to the day. So hopefully that does happen. We'll definitely go looking for little Hosanna a bit later and see what we can find. But you can see we've just repositioned ourselves. It's not the best view because you have to look through a lot of vegetation to see the entrance to this hole from the side. But you can see the one little cub is busy suckling away there. Now, it's not to say that the other cub isn't there. He could be just inside the hole and has already suckled and is now having a nice nap after seeing mom, and would have been quite excited and played around quite a bit, and maybe got a nice full tummy and has got inside the warm termite mound to be able to have a little rest. So it's no concern at this stage. I would have just thought that both of them would have been out, especially if one was suckling. Oh, you've got yourself into a tangle, little one. What are you doing? Hyena cubs are probably one of the funniest creatures to watch. They just seem to be up to something all the time. Even suckling, they seem to get themselves into awkward angles. You can see feet are in all directions, but it does look very comfortable. It's kind of got itself on the side, and when there's not another sibling there, it actually makes it much easier for one of these to suckle. You can see they can take over and lie there and get as much nutrients as they want. Are you battling to stand up? Very, very cute indeed. Now, that milk will be vitally important for these little ones. It's not going to be too much longer that they're going to get access to it. As soon as they start getting to sort of 6-7 months old, they start to be completely weaned, and so it's important that they suckle as much as possible now, because that milk is nutrient rich and it's really going to be very sustaining for them and make them sort of get bigger and healthier very, very quickly. So it needs to take advantage of the milk, and that's why they feed quite ferociously when they're like this. Also, they, unlike the adults, are not moving from the den, so they're not able to pick up little scraps here and there and constantly feed themselves. And so when it's time to drink, they become a bit gluttonous, and I'm sure during the nights they had a long night of being on their own. They're quite hungry now, and so they're busy wolfing down as much milk as possible. But it's really good to see that they are still at this den. I was getting a bit despondent by it all, but when Tayla said yesterday that she had tracks for the little ones, then at least we knew that those little ones were still alive and must be somewhere close by. So I'm quite glad that they're still at this den and that we have an access to it. It does really make life a lot easier, and especially with the weekend coming up. It is Mother's Day weekend, so it's really good that we have Ribbon and her cubs, and hopefully they'll put on a show for the TV shows that we do have coming up. So it'll be really nice if they are out there. Are you not comfortable, little one? Seems to be tossing and turning an awful lot this morning. I wonder if there isn't maybe some sort of parasite that is giving them a few issues, and that's why it's wiggling. There's often fleas and varying other things inside there that sometimes can cause a bit of itching, and that's maybe why it's moving so much. Now, Seek Truth, you saying or asking, is this the same den? Yes, it is the same den. It's just we're at a very different angle. Normally Ribbon actually lies away from that hole and she'll spend time in the more sort of open areas and the cubs come out, but it is the same den. It just looks very strange from this angle because of all the trees. If I drive around a little bit, you'll see that it is indeed the same one. Now, in the background there is a marula tree where we had shongile the other day, so it is the same den that they spend a lot of time at. It's just that there's been sort of quite a lot of disturbance here. We've had shongile arrive, so that would have been a scent of a leopard. There's been quite a few elephants and buffalo that have walked through here, and then we had most of the members of the clan arrive the other day, and Byron was here when that happened, and there was lots of vocalizing and lots of commotion, and since then it's been a bit quiet at the den. We've sort of struggled to find them here, and so maybe there was just a bit of sort of commotion and they became a little bit more shy of what was going on. And now sort of everything's calming down again. They back out, and you can see Ribbon is far more relaxed with things. The other day when I came here, she just got up and moved off. She didn't even stay at the den, so it's nice to see her sticking around and feeding the cubs and taking it a little bit easy and not too fazed by our presence. But you can see that little cub is perfectly positioned. Isn't that cute? And it's getting so spotty now. I remember when we first saw them, they were those dark little black babies and they had no spots on them yet, and now you can see quite a few spots coming out. There's very little in the way of black, just the legs are solid black color now, so they are getting quite big quite quickly. And one came out just now when we first arrived, and it was actually standing quite close to the car, and I'm very surprised at how tall they are already. Their legs have gotten much longer. They no longer have those short little stubby legs that run around. They've got now these more sort of hyena looking legs where the front legs are nice and long, and they're starting to look quite big and sort of strong, so it's really good to see that they're growing so nicely and getting enough nutrition and enough food to sustain themselves. Ah, Samantha, you're wondering if a hyena would eat a carcass of one of their own. Well, I've seen them eating a carcass of a hyena. I'm not sure if it was one of the clan members, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the lower ranking individuals or males ended up eating a carcass of one of their own. I've never heard of a mother eating its babies, but I suppose it's possible. I think a lot of that kind of stuff we don't see, particularly when it comes to young ones. But as far as I have seen a hyena eating another one, but I can't remember. As I say, I didn't know whether they were clan mates at the time, so it could be that they was part of the same clan or from a rival clan, and they were just a dominance display and feeding off the other one. But they sometimes don't eat too much of it. In the one that I saw them eating, there was they just ate over the rib cage area and then they left it and it just rotted away. So I don't think it's their favorite thing to do. I think it's more just a show of dominance to another one and to show that we have killed this particular individual, and that they kind of sending out a very clear message that they are the more sort of dominant of that particular area. Now you can see the sun is just coming up and the little rays of light are now starting to come towards the hole. So I wonder if it won't actually drive them in. So Nora, you're wondering if hyena babies suckle in their sleep. Well, you can see that little one is eyes are closed. It's not sleeping though. It's still awake, and every now and then it's moving, but they do go into a sort of rest position, eyes closed, and they then just suckle away. It's much like a human baby, I would imagine, in the same way. So it's not that they're actually sleeping, it's just that they're in a comfortable position and they are fairly happy with where they are, and so the eyes start to close, and they then end up getting the milk that way. And you'll find once they finish drinking, they wake up quite quickly, stand up, and then they'll wander off to an area where they'll actually go for a proper sleep. So they're not actually sleeping while they're suckling. I wonder where the second one is. So Shelley, the gender of the cubs is difficult, especially from an angle like this. You can see the tail is all tucked up in there, and it becomes almost impossible to see any sort of physical form. So no, at this stage we can't. I don't think any of us actually have successfully sexed these two yet. But as soon as they stand up and they move around and you can see the two of them, then yes, we would probably be able to sex them at this age. They are starting to get big enough that we could potentially do that. But from this angle and this particular sort of position that it's sitting in, there's really no way to tell if that's a male or a female. It is sort of all tucked up and curled up. You can see it's pulling its little bum in now, so there's really no ways to see the sort of genital area and see whether or not it's a male or female. Right, now unfortunately we're probably going to have to leave these hyenas fairly shortly. There's quite a few vehicles that would like to come and see them. It's been an absolute privilege to see them this morning, so we're probably going to carry on and see if we can't find Hosanna. And while we do that, I believe Steph is out and about and would like to say good morning from the Bushwalk team.
I would like to say good morning actually, and good morning to everybody out there. My name is Stefan. Today we have Jean-Andre on the camera, and it has been a long time since I've been able to do a walk here at Djuma. I've been in Kenya for a little bit, setting up our camp up there, and have arrived back just yesterday, and I couldn't wait to get out here today and just to hear that Tristan has been sitting with those hyena cubs and Tayla's been with the giraffe early this morning, and for myself just waking up to the sound of crested francolin, one of my most favorite of the bird calls out here. It was just such a privilege today. Now we've got this beautiful sunrise. This is one of those lovely mornings in May that we really enjoy, at least myself. I really enjoy two periods of a year. January for the sheer diversity of life, and May because the bush just seems to be calming down after a very intense growth period. And I don't know if you'll cast your minds back, if you could remember, for those of you who've been watching the show for a while at least anyway, how we were battling to get through the bush in January, well, a little bit after that, probably about February, March, how thick and robust the bush was. Now we're going to start seeing the bush calming down. The grasses all dropped their seeds, they'll start to lie flat, the water pans are drying up, and the animals are going to start concentrating again into the dry season around all the water points. And as those water points get fewer and fewer, the animal concentrations around the last remaining drops of water get more and more, and so we start seeing that build-up of large mammal species and massive concentrations of animals again. In particular, the Djuma pan, which of course, as you would know, becomes such a central part of the game viewing and the game viewing activities around Djuma Private Game Reserve here as we move towards October. So just a nice time of year. Let's go through here. One of the things that I like to see is these last season flowers. Now this is a Senna peteecii, one of the last of the flowering plants at the end of the summer, and quite often, if you are very careful, the home to a number of insects, both predator and prey, and I'm hoping to find something on one of these flowering plants here that we can have a look at this morning. Might be a little bit early for them, nevertheless. So what is the plan for today? I'm actually just going to walk around and get myself plugged back into the bush, and in so doing hopefully uncover some things for you as well. So without further ado, I'm going to make myself off, or take myself off of this open area in a southerly direction and carry on wandering. We'll catch up with you in a little bit. Off you go to one of my colleagues.
Well, we've come out of the hyena den and we've spotted two beautiful ground scraper thrushes that are on top of a marula and are just absorbing a lot of sunshine and getting nice and warm. I'm sure it's much like Steph, who's bathing in this early morning light, and they're doing the exact same. And it's quite nice to see, because ground scraper thrushes are actually not the easiest to find, and generally are quite skittish. As you come along, they often will fly away and try and get away from you. So really nice to see them out in the open like this. You can see that heavily streaked chest with those bars around the eyes and that typical thrush-like beak that they have. And you'll find most of the time these are on the ground, as the name says, ground scraper. They spend most of their time on the ground, moving around, looking for varying food items that is in the grass. And they probably find that they're sitting up in the tree like this at the moment because the grass is still quite damp with dew, and so their wings will get very wet and their feathers very sodden with water. So better for them to come down, and then they're able to, to sit in the tree, dry out, get nice and sort of warm, wait for the grass to dry out, and then they'll come down and start to feed. But very, very pretty indeed. It's not often you get to see them sitting out in the open like that for so long. Well done, Senzo. Well spotted. Right, now, while I was sitting here, I also just had lions roaring to my south. Now, I think they might be somewhere close by. I'm going to go quickly check Treehouse Dam, because it sounds like it's somewhere in that area. So let's go quickly get into that area and see if we can't find them. It doesn't sound like a full-blooded roar. It sounded like more a contact call. So I want to just try and see if maybe they're around. Last night we had male lions roaring their heads off at around 8 o'clock, but it sounded quite far north towards the sort of Sabi-Sand Gate area, the divide between Buffelshoek and Djuma. So maybe this is one of those males that has now come down and headed in this direction. So while we kind of head into that direction, I believe Tayla is back up and running and is out and about, and so let's see where she is and what she's up to.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, Sebastian and I are just bumbling about at the moment. We obviously had these male lion tracks that we found earlier this morning. So I haven't quite followed them just yet because there's been quite a bit of traffic up and down the roads. So we're on Impala Plain, or we're heading towards Impala Plains, and I want you very, very quickly just check a section of Triple M. Knowing these lions and the routes that they like to walk. Hang on, before I even go any further, how cool is this? No, don't fly away. No, just some birds warming up. Birchall Starling actually landed right in front of the car. That is quite nice. And they were warming up in the sun. There was also a laughing dove. Hello. Look at it, very excited. I've got berries to eat. This is, of course, a Birchall Starling, and it is eating the unripened fruit on a guarri bush. Just you have to be a little bit patient, because if you just waited a few more weeks, they'd be delicious, and they'd be purple, and they would taste like a grape crossed with a pomegranate. That's, of course, what I think they taste like. Oh, there's a few that are starting to ripen, but I can promise you right now, they'd be quite bitter. But have you ever seen such an excited starling before? Literally singing for joy. Yum. Wasn't that tasty? Now, if I were you, Starling, I wouldn't announce to everybody else that this tree is filled with lovely, lush berries, because somebody's going to come and steal them from you, and I'm one of those culprits, actually. One of my favorite fruits in the bush is from the guarri tree. Let me see if I can reach one. Haha, I'm going to eat your berry. Haha, I don't even have to try and reach them. I'm so excited. This is wonderful. Now remember, of course, this is a live and interactive safari. If you have just joined us, and welcome again, and you can hashtag Safari Live with, well, all of your questions. So, let's get an unripe one too. These are really good to throw at your siblings. No, I'm just joking, don't do that. My brother and I, growing up as kids, actually used to play games with the guarri berries, and we'd throw them at each other. They're tiny, they're very small, they don't really do too much damage, and especially when you're younger, it doesn't work. Like, let me throw one at Sebastian. Ouch. He's such a drama queen. But now for that, Sebastian, I'll eat a sour guarri berry just for your enjoyment, really. It's not particularly ripe, but they sort of go a dark purple. That's the ideal color. This is a little bit not so great, and as you know, the guarri trees are filled with tannins anyway. Let me try this. That was a good one. A little bit bitter, but not so bad. Oh yeah, the tannins. Yeah. That was just like, that was a false alarm. It tasted so good initially, and then all of a sudden the moisture just withdrew from my mouth, and gets a little bit bitter. I'll have to eat a grape instead. Okay, well that's good to know. I'm so glad to see that these beautiful plants are getting their berries now. Isn't that quite lovely? It reminds me of a Christmas decoration for some reason. I don't know why. I suppose because I grew up with guarri bushes in the garden. I think my mom actually used to use them to decorate the tables at some point, but we'd pick all the berries off and eat them, and then there would just be leaves, and you can imagine she wasn't very happy with that. But nature is just incredible, the way that it gives at certain times of the year. For example, let's carry on driving. We've just had the marulas, and then we had nothing for a while, and then we had the torchwood fruits, which Tristan was showing you the other day at Biffleshoek Dam. They're just starting to fall, and now we've got the guarri berries, and soon the jackalberries are going to come back too. So even though we're coming into winter, the trees have now built up all of these nutrients that they're able to pump back into the leaves, and then of course start producing delicious tasty fruits, which is nice because the birds are all happy. You saw there that Starling was so excited to be eating those berries, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of go-away birds. We're going to see lots of barbets, many different things that feed on fruit are going to be coming down there to have a little nibble. And they'll just start checking guarri bush to guarri bush to guarri bushes. And that's exactly what they're going to do, is that there's a lot over here. Cursed, I've forgotten, we're going into an ad break. Okay. This is absolutely amazing. Right, we're going to head off for a very short break, but I hope that you don't go too far. Stay tuned. Tristan still with those hyenas. Are there other cubs going to come out? Who knows? Like I said, we'll be with you shortly. Okay, I promise I'll do better, Kirst. I didn't know what I was talking about there for a moment, but we'll... Right. Look, I haven't had time to warm up yet. Let's get warmed. Oh my goodness, I think I'm going to have a sip of water though. You won't actually believe how bitter that berry was right towards the end of it. But anyways, we're going to go across now. Maybe we should ask Steph to have a little nibble on the guarri bush and see what he thinks. And speaking of Steph, let's go back across to him.
Spider web in this one.
You know, sometimes I wonder whether Tayla's doing it just to have one of those giggles of hers, or whether she actually wants us to describe the taste of a guarri bush. But I'll do my best to do it without having to eat one of the leaves. They're horrible. But we are still exploring these Senna petitiae plant by plant, and I see that there is a spider on this one, which is quite nice. So we can come and bring you a little bit closer to this particular spider. This plant, incidentally, has been used widely, and the genus has been used widely across the world to help ease a tight tummy, if I could put it that way. It's a very mild laxative, and they've actually commercialized the extract from this root. The product that we call Senocot in South Africa gets used widely, and it's made from this plant. Now that little spider is walking around just there at the point of my finger.
I can see a spider, but not by your finger.
Yeah, it's a little bit in front of my finger.
Right.
Sorry. Chandra and I are just learning how to work with each other again after being apart for a month or so. Now it sounds pretty weird, but that is exactly how it is. You build up a rapport with the guys you work out here in the bush with, and it's going to take us today just to get used to all of that stuff. I must tell you, I can see at least 5 or 6, 7 now spiders on this one plant, and I got a feeling it's because these sennas are the last flowering plants that we have out here at the moment, and they're attracting a vast amount of insects to them, and of course with the insects come the predators, and so these hubs of activity are going to be where the spiders, just before we have our first sort of cold weather rolling in here off the Atlantic. And truth be told, here's a fly right here that's sitting on top of this flower, and that is exactly what these spiders are after. This fly is coming to feed off the nectar off of the plants, an early morning nectar feeder. As the day progresses and gets a little bit warmer, we'll start to see an influx of butterflies here, and from the butterflies into the moths, and then all the nocturnal beetles that are out here, and these spiders will be having an absolute feast of it. Really, really nice. Now, Michael, you've asked me an interesting question here, one that I don't really have the answer to, but I'm going to try and I'll try and answer it as best as I can. You've asked me how many species of trees out here produce a fruit. Michael, I would argue that every species of tree out here produces a fruit of some sort. Whether or not it's an edible fruit is, I suppose, the question that you're most wanting to know. And in that sense, not very many. There are a lot of plants out here that you can eat portions of. There's a lot of fruit out here that you can eat portions of. But the vast majority of the fruiting trees out here produce a tiny seed capsule, either eaten by insects or birds or animals of a variety of sorts. But for humans to consume, I would say it's limited to, what did you say, Jean? Probably about 25, maybe up to about 50 species of tree out here. And there are over 500 species of flowering plant in the Kruger National Park, so not a lot, not for humans' needs at least anyway. Hopefully that helped you there, Mark, and probably didn't answer your question too nicely. Anyway, we're going to carry on looking at our yellow flowers and making our way deeper into the bush, and in the meantime we're going to be sending you off to Tristan.
So we've come down to where we heard those lions roaring, and unfortunately the tracks are going south into Little Gowrie. So they've crossed on my right hand side over here, just over on the right. They're busy moving there, and it looks like for just one male, so it's not ideal, but we'll carry on this road just in case they may have turned back, because I think that they might just have come back onto our side, because the way that they were calling sounded like somewhere along this road. Unless we just missed them, unfortunately, that would be tragic state of affairs. There is a little open area just to the south of us called Lucas Open, and often the lions like to go and lie there, so I wouldn't be surprised if they are in that area. Now, actually, what I might do is just show you one of the tracks. Let me go back quickly. Now we are going to come out of our ad break, so I might go quiet for a few seconds. Senzo, are you going to be able to? Well, welcome back. We're still on the tracks for these male lions. Unfortunately, they are moving south towards our boundary, but we are trying to see if we can't find them. And I know Steph is still looking around for quite a few plants and things on his bushwalk. Now remember, we are coming to you live from sunny South Africa, so you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter to ask us any questions that you may have about any of the wildlife in this area. Now, the tracks that I was talking about are these ones over here. So we can see that there was a male lion that walked here quite recently. So there is his track coming there, and you can see that it's on top of the elephants from early last night. We've got a Jenna track as well, but the lions are right on top. So this is quite a big male lion that walked here, and his tracks are very, very fresh. So it would have been from early this morning, possibly just before we got going. And unfortunately, like I say, we are on the boundary and they are moving south, so it seems like they've crossed the boundary, and we are going to try and just see if we can't find them further along. The roaring, like I said earlier, sounds like it's coming from somewhere in this area, so it sometimes happens that lions will kind of track back a little bit and might come out. So hopefully they might be here somewhere. So Michael, very, very good question. You're asking if the moisture in the air would affect how far the lion's roar travels. Well, yes, it will. So I was just talking about this with Senzo and explaining to him that in winter, when the air becomes much colder and drier, we tend to find that the sound of a lion's roar will travel further. The air is less dense, and therefore the sound waves can cut through it and you can hear it from a much sort of further away. When it's hot and very, very humid and there's a lot of moisture in the air, it then doesn't travel nearly as far. So this morning it is much cooler and it's much it feels drier in a way, even though there is dew in the grass. But the sound that they make could have traveled from a lot further away, and it takes a bit of time to get used to that sort of change in air temperatures and where the roars could be coming from. So it might be a little bit further south than I first thought, but it is possible that they have gone a little bit further. But anyway, let's try and see what we can find, and maybe we get lucky and they come back. Now, while we look around for these lions and see if they're not somewhere in this area, can go across to Tayla and see what she's doing and where she's bumbling and whether or not she's had any luck this morning.
I'm trying to avoid all types of construction this morning, but the elephants have now blocked my pathway by pushing over a silver cluster leaf tree. So we're going to have to go past all the big trucks. See, what's happening this morning is I think Eskom is here to fix the big power lines, and they've got the most monstrous trucks with big sort of attachments that have a little basket and send people up to the tops of the power lines. So I was trying to avoid them. So you're just going to have to go off-road here though. And then we will continue. Oh, but now there's a wire on the road. I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't want to be driving over any cables. Okay, let's do this. We'll go here, we'll go around the tree, and then we'll go back onto the fire break. See, there's a big cable, so I wonder if they're not putting a new cable up. And well, because there's electricity normally running through those things, we won't be driving over one of those. Otherwise, my hair may turn into a mohawk. Even though I've got big rubber tires, let's not take a chance. No, we need to go into low range for that. No? Wendy, that's rude. You normally go over everything. What have we got there? Little baby sticks. Come on. Come on, girl. Just treat her like it's a horse. No, now she's popped out of 4x4 gear. Come on, Wendy. Don't embarrass me now. We're going to go under the wattle, so I'm just going to wait for the aerial to be dropped. This is exciting, hey? What a great way to start your day. Are we ready? Oh, no, not yet. Now the big trucks are starting to move. They're going to make a lot of noise too. Right, under we go very quickly. Whee! Whee! I think those trucks are going to actually have to move off of the road, because I don't know if they realize that they're on Gowrie Main at the moment. Bye, truck. Off they go. My goodness, that's going to be interesting when they meet a herd of elephants on the road, of course. Also, I don't think we're going to be tracking very much this morning on Gowrie Main, so I'm not even going to bother going there, because the tracks will be non-existent. So if we have a chance, we'll check on the fire break. Now, Ruti, you're wondering if the national bird or animal is found on Djuma. Unfortunately not. We don't have any blue cranes here. However, the blue crane, which is our national bird, you can find down in the area that I'm from. So from the Eastern Cape of South Africa, there are quite a few game reserves around that area. There were old farms, well, they were turned into farms, all that land, by the European settlers. And some of them have been sort of changed back and tried to let all the natural vegetation restored. And then because of that, we've got an influx of blue cranes, which is really quite nice, because they're also not very easy to see, and unfortunately I think they are actually quite endangered. And then Springbok, the mammal, no, unfortunately none of them here. They prefer sort of drier, arid regions. So if you go towards the Kalahari or any of those areas, Namibia, you have a better chance of course seeing some springback. We used to have a couple down in the Eastern Cape too, but really they're not suited into sort of moist areas. They were often taken down by something called heartwater, which was brought about because of the ticks, and they couldn't sort of build up an immunity to that. We tried and tried and tried, and every year that they would lamb, only 2 or 3 would survive out of a herd of about 50. And it wasn't that any potentially the bulk of them were being taken by predators. It was because of this disease from the ticks. They're just not used to it. I'm not saying that there aren't any ticks in the drier regions. There most certainly are, but I think the population of ticks is much larger here, because again, water brings a lot of life, and normally after rain we see a boom in the population of ticks too. So that's quite interesting as to why certain animals can't survive around here. It's the same thing with gemsbok or oryx, another animal more suited to the arid regions in Africa. Well, let's see. Oh, that was a spider web. That was nice. Did you get that, Sebastian, or was it just me? Just me. Don't worry, I'll protect you. I've got you covered. Well, the spiders have got me covered, actually. So I'm not sure what we're going to do now. I think we're going to go up Philemon's cut line and perhaps see if we can pick up any tracks of Hosanna to start off with. And we'll take it from there. However, as you know, Steph is also bumbling about, but he's on foot. And I wonder if he's got his head in the grass searching for smaller things.
I definitely have got my head in the grass searching for small things, and I'd like to just say thank you to everybody who's welcomed me back. It's always nice to hear your thoughts and comments, and in particular when they're like that. So thank you very much for that. We're hearing the lion that Tristan is tracking and showed you the tracks of. We're hearing it just a little bit into the bush here in front of us. I don't think that he's on property. I actually think that he sounds like he's coming from Little Gowrie somewhere. And we've also at the same time heard the trucks that Tayla was trying to get around as well. It is unbelievable how sound travels out here on a relatively coolish morning like this. And those trucks are about 5 miles behind you at the moment, and we're just hearing them bellowing out into the morning. The male lion sounds like he's about 2 miles or so away in this direction over here. Also making a contact call, a soft contact call. And well, let's hope that we find not the trucks and find the lion before the end of the show today. Right now, I'm busy looking at an area where water comes up out of the ground, a seep line. And one of the indicator species is this gum grass. And in a very wet year, the water will actually come out of the ground at such a tempo that it actually creates an area where grass does not grow. And quite often you get these, we call them a seep, but they're actually just a spring. And this spring is where you find a lot of good quality grass. And as the season dries up, these areas will stay, these islands of green, them and the termite mounds, and will attract a large amount of herbivores, which attract a large amount of the predators that feed on them, exactly the same as those flowers we were having a look at a little bit earlier. They become these islands for food, and the food brings the predators, and then you get to see them. So these areas, these seep line areas that we see over here, will eventually become the places where the grass sort of carries on a little bit longer into the season. And in this particular case, the seep was so active that not even the hardcore gum grass could grow here anymore, and it was just left with this bare soil. And when we're driving around like Tristan and Tayla are, we try not to drive over these patches. These patches, for all they provide food and water, are also one of the most sensitive of the areas out here. And you'll see that when the guys drive around, when our presenters drive around, they do not drive through these areas if they can possibly help it. You always drive around it. And that's because you can create quite a lot of soil erosion problems here. So you create what they call a nick point. So as you're driving your car up, your wheel slightly spins and it creates a gully. That gully channels water, and that's like a knife blade, cuts into the soil and goes very quickly through the organic horizons, the top layer of soil that comprises all of the compost and the humus and most of the organisms that provide for a healthy environment for plants and trees, and cuts through that, and the soil then washes away, and you get soil erosion happening down into the gullies. It's a natural process, but it can be accelerated by a bad driving practice, and that's just one of the things that we do and learn out here when you're learning how to become a field guide, is how to avoid areas that are quite sensitive. So it may look like we're just bashing through the bush when we're driving, but quite often it's done with much sensitivity to the area around, and these are one of those things. So Pokemon guy, you've just asked me if the Sabi Sands has altitude. I'm not quite sure I got that question just right, so if you wouldn't mind, Kirsty, just confirm that. Oh, is the Sabi Sands at high altitude? No, the Sabi Sands is not at high altitude, Pokemon guy. Right now we're sitting at 400 meters above sea level. So between the Sabi Sands ranges from about 250 meters above sea level to about 400 meters above sea level. In feet, that would probably be, what's it, 600 feet to around about 1,200 feet, somewhere around there. So not very high at all, and we are about 100 miles away from the ocean. The ocean lies east of us over there. It's the Indian Ocean, off of South Africa, off of Mozambique's coast in actual fact, near a town called Xai-Xai, XAI-XAI, and if you draw a line exactly west from there is where we are in the Kruger National Park, about 100 miles away and about 400 meters above sea level. So not very high at all. Comparatively speaking, in Kenya, we're 1,900 meters above sea level, so higher even than Johannesburg, and that's probably close to about 6,000 feet, maybe just a little bit over 6,000 feet above sea level. So much higher altitude in Kenya, and of course everything is different there because we're not only at a higher altitude, but we're also closer to the equator. Here where we are 22 degrees south. On the equator in the Mara camp, we are at 0 degrees south, so we're just off of the equator, just south of the equator. So we're looking forward to exploring that environment and everything that just those two factors bring with it. Now, what I have picked over here is the Samara. That is what this four-winged pod is called. This is a Samara fruit. That's and it's made to be dispersed by wind and water. And it's growing very specifically close to the seep line that we were having a look at. This Samara would, when it's drier, would fall off of the tree, would land on the floor, and through wind and water would be dispersed downslope usually, and would come to rest against the base of a bush, and there would germinate. So it would come to rest against the base of the bush, hopefully in a footprint. So here's the footprint of a waterbuck. Excuse me. It would come to rest there, and that is where it would grow. This is the seed of a combretum, the very distinctive Samara of a combretum, and this is the russet bush willow, and quite nice from a seed dispersal point of view. So they don't rely on insects or birds or humans to disperse the seeds, but they rely on wind and water. All right, well, before it flies away, we're going to send you over to Tristan, who's got a lilac-breasted roller to show you.
Well, Steph, we had a lilac-breasted roller and it flew away, unfortunately, and that's how things go. So now we're just staring at a bare branch. But it was a lilac-breasted roller. Oh, there it is. It's actually landed again. You see it there, Senzo, in the back? Ah, stay there. Don't fly. There we go. We managed to find it again. They are just such beautiful birds in this morning light, even when they are flying about and making life difficult for us. But you can see he's all puffed up. It's cold this morning, so feathers all puffed and it's trapping air against the body, trying to stay nice and warm. But you can see where it gets its name from as well. That big, big lilac breast, and then this turquoise tummy, and they've got those electric blue wings as well. Really are very, very pretty. And it's their time to shine now. In the summer months we had all those European rollers, and the lilac-breasted rollers almost take a back seat because the European roller is slightly bigger, tends to dominate all the prominent perching areas. So it is quite nice to see them out and about again. Now, from one bird to another, let's get across to Tayla before her bird flies away.
We are sitting with a bird that seems to be following us around as of late. It is a white-browed scrub robin, but that's all I'm going to say because I want you to listen to its beautiful call. Isn't that lovely? The way that it chirps. At one point I thought it went to me, but I don't think it did. But yes, that's a little brown scrub robin, white-browed scrub robin. So you see them quite often. And off it goes, just standing on it. Oh, it's sitting in an even better spot now, just on this little leadwood. Hang on, I'm going to roll forward. You can see it just jumping. These trees are moving. Oh no, now it's gone inside. It's acting like a real scrub robin, and that's normally where they do sit, as they hide away in thickets like that. One of the reasons where they get their name from. But you just saw a lilac-breasted roller with Tristan. That was quite cool, but unfortunately they don't have the greatest singing voices, and that's normally something that we tend to see with birds, is that either they're brightly colored and they've got the most horrendous voices because they're using their plumage to attract their mates, or if you're like the little scrub robin, not necessarily the greatest colors, but I still love the streaking on the chest and the white supercilium. But they've got a beautiful singing voice to be able to attract to attract their mates. And I suppose that's one of the birds they create for the most amazing dawn choruses. And you hear them at night too. Now I'd like to find some other scrub robins, perhaps a bearded scrub robin. That would be very, very nice. Do you see maybe one of those? Oh my gosh, we've got the Bushwalk team. And they're waving. There's Herbie, Genre, Steph, doing their thing on Bushwalk this morning. I wonder if they were listening to the same bird that we were listening to. Now they go off, they're walking off. But that's quite cool. It's always nice to see the Bushwalk team, and you can see that everybody's looking fit and healthy. Not just the animals out here, but so is our team. Steph shaking his head. But unfortunately, we're off to an ad break. We'll see you in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Who knows what they might find? Could be a leopard around the next corner. There we go. Okay, I'm wondering, we can pass Steph very quickly. We'll just get in front of him, and then we'll see what route he's going to go, and then we'll take a different route. But I think we're going to actually head towards Cheetah Plains. I think it's just a good idea just to have a quick scan around there this morning. And then from there, maybe we'll see some nice birds, maybe some southern ground hornbills, which would be good. Maybe quailias. Alright, so we're going to say goodbye, well, to everybody that's in the circle. I'm going to have a very quick chat to Steph. Tristan, however, has found himself at a large area of water.
We have indeed, Tayla. We've come to Twin Dams just to see if any of our royal cubs are here, Hosana or Shongile, and see if they might be hanging around their favourite jaunt. But alas, at this stage, I don't see anything. And it seems that Twin Dams itself is rather quiet. There's no hippos, there is no crocodile that I can see, very few birds around the waterhole. It seems like everything is very, very quiet indeed. Maybe it's a little bit too cold to be near the water at this stage. Might find that as the morning warms up, things will start to arrive, but it's still a little bit cold. But we'll try and see if we can look around. Shongile likes to hang around more on the sort of southern side of the dam itself. She likes to kind of go into this thicket that we have on our left hand side here, and she spends her time sort of hunting around this little marshy area. So I want to just try and see in case she's sitting somewhere there. Other than that, it's all quite quiet. There's very little in the way of tracks to be following. I've been looking for elephant tracks. I've been trying to see if I can't find an elephant herd somewhere, but it's proving to be quite difficult at this stage. They seem to be far more elusive. It's just evidence of them pushing trees everywhere, but no real fresh tracks. It seems like they move through the night. And at the moment, because it's full moon, you'll find that elephants, cheetah, wild dogs are going to be far more active during the night and move much bigger distances. I mean, it makes it much harder to actually find them. When it's new moon, because it's so dark, they tend to be a lot more sort of restricted in their movement at night. And when it's full moon, you'll find those species tend to move quite a bit. I know the two cheetah brothers that we had on Cheetah Plains yesterday afternoon, they've already found their tracks going north in Torchwood, so they're heading up towards Buffels Hook already, so they've covered quite a big distance. If it was a new moon period, I wouldn't have been surprised if we'd found them in the exact same place, but because it's so bright during the night, they can actually walk around without too much fear of bumping into too many things. There we go, there's a sign of life. Senzo, you see him on the tree there. So we have our monitor lizard who was there yesterday, and I'm quite surprised the monitor lizard is actually out at this stage and lying on the branch. Maybe just spent the entire night on that leadwood. You can see the leadwood that's in the middle of this waterhole, and our monitor lizard is hiding on the branch over there. So you can see a nice big monitor lizard. This is probably one of the biggest Nile monitors I've seen in a long time. So it really is a beautiful specimen. You can see his colors. They've got these sort of yellows that come through on those sort of dark spots, and they are very, very pretty lizards, albeit very big. You can see there's that long tail that's curling up, and they'll use that tail for defense and for looking after themselves as well as propelling themselves in water. And there, look at the size of those feet. Massive feet with massive claws as well. So they're able to use those to climb around and get up onto these trees when moving. It also helps to grip in mud and varying other sort of substrates to be able to move around. So really nice to see. Now, I'm pretty sure that that lizard will spend most of the day there, and it's going to try and absorb as much sunshine as possible. Now, we're going to come out of our ad break, so I might stay quiet for a few seconds as we count down out of our ad break. So bear with us. We will be back to normal shortly. Welcome back, everybody. We're still moving around in the beautiful early morning light, and we're checking around some of the water holes just to see if any of our cats are around. We're at Twin Dams at the moment, which is a place where the royal cubs often like to hang about. If you're not sure who the royal cubs are, you're welcome to chat to us on #SafariLive on Twitter, and you can ask us all about them. They are the sort of leopard family that we do see in this area, so if you want to know more, you can get hold of us on #SafariLive. But we have got ourselves a monitor lizard who is just taking it very, very easy and is enjoying some sunshine in this early morning cool weather. So he is in the perfect spot to rest for the day and get nice and warm before he starts to hunt. And there we go, we're out of TV. Well, we're into TV. Well done, all of us. That's a ad break coming back. And so, as we've spoken about already, our lizard is fairly relaxed in his branch, and I would imagine that he'll probably hunt later today. So once he's warmed up through the day, you'll find he's going to come down into this water and start looking around for frogs and fish and eggs of birds and varying other sort of prey species that he can come across. And then you'll find he moves around quite a bit. And this monitor lizard, it's interesting because I keep seeing his tracks going from here. He goes to Chelopan, and then from Chelopan all the way to Vuyatela Dam. So he moves quite a bit, or she moves quite a bit. It's quite sort of difficult to sex them when they're sitting on a branch like that. But they'll move up and down quite a lot. And that's because they're trying to find the food that they need. These water holes are not exactly large, and so they exhaust the food items quite quickly, and so then they head to another one, and they keep going back and forth trying to find what they're looking for. Right, Mr. Monitor Lizard, we're going to leave you to your own devices and to get nice and warm, and hopefully it will be a pleasant day for you and no birds will come attack you. So Ali, you're saying, my goodness, how on earth do we even see that monitor lizard? Well, Ali, the first time it was there, it was quite a difficult spot, but now I've seen it there so many times that it's instinctively, you just look there and then you can kind of pick it up quite quickly. But it is a difficult animal to spot. The first time I actually saw it, I'm not quite sure, I can't remember which cameraman I was with, but they were the ones that spotted it, and I wasn't really sure how they did, because they are very camouflaged. And there's another monitor that sits there that's much smaller, and that smaller monitor is almost impossible to see. But actually, funny enough, now that you know that they often sit there, it's quite easy to spot them, and especially a big one like that. But now we are going to try and get ourselves out of this main road, because there is a bit of work going on the power lines to all the lodges, so we're going to try and get away from all that, because there's trucks and varying other things. So while we do that, let's go across to the maestro of the bush himself, Stefan.
Thank you. We are busy marching at the moment as we're on the road, which is not really what I enjoy doing, but to get from one place to another, they are really the best ways. They're like these super highways for trails guides. And the reason is that there's a lot of activity in this area of the reserve, and it's disturbing my peace this morning. So we want to cross over the Mulwati River, which is the major drainage line in this particular area. It's not a permanent water source, although there's a lot of water underneath the sand. We're going to cross over there and head into the northern parts of Djuma, the north central parts of Djuma Private Game Reserve, and the bush is a lot thicker there, and I'm hoping that we get to see some different things there, at least anyway. Fermented zombie owl. That's the first time I've ever heard your Twitter handle. Oh, tormented zombie owl. Excuse me. It's I think your name coupled with my deaf ears and weird way of interpreting these things. You've asked me about. In actual fact, I can't even remember. Kirsty, would you mind just repeating that? Get it.
Are there any plants that thrive in winter?
Are there any? Yes, plants that flower. Yes, there absolutely are. So the question is, are there any plants that survive better in winter than summer? Please excuse me there, tormented zombie owl. Yes, so let's just go back to the question. I would say that there's a species of plant, more so in summer than what they are in winter, but more so in summer. But every single month of the year, there's a species of plant that has evolved to make use of that particular season to its own benefit. So as we start going from the hype around summer, where almost everything was flowering, including all the grasses, hence Tayla and Tristan's hay fever, we now move away where not so many plants flower, but there are still some that do. So right now we've got the Senna Petetii that we've been looking at this morning, and they are providing these spots of color in the bush. Here's one right here, just to give you an example of that. As soon as these ones start to die, all the aloes start to flower. So we go from these sennas to the aloes, and throughout from the aloes into the euphorbias, and then what will happen is the mistletoes will start to flower, and from the mistletoes the knobthorns will start to flower, and the knobthorns and the weeping bourbeens, the scotias, and so we'll then move out of the dry season back into summer again. So we go from the sennas to the aloes, from the aloes to the euphorbias, and that'll take us into the end of July, beginning of August. Around about the 10th of August, the knobthorns will start to flower again, and so we'll go. So every single month there's a different plant that sort of has its moment to shine, and it's mainly just because of the competition. So they're all competing essentially for the same insect resource or the same plant, bird resource that they need to help to pollinate them. And it helps when you can offset your growth cycle slightly so that you become the focal point. It just makes it a lot easier. So in the terms of these Senna Petetii here, well, they stick out sort of islands, and that makes them points. Insects come, pollination happens very, very quickly, and of course they don't then have to have lengthy times of having many showy flowers for a long period of time to make sure that they get pollinated sufficiently. Alright, we are going to be sending you over to Tayla, who's just bumbling around. The next time you see me, we're going to be in the deep bush on the other side of the Moati.
My goodness, Steph, you really are on a journey this morning. Now, I have to tell you something quite funny. Actually, just going to stop here for 2 seconds. Is obviously I was telling you about the big trucks that are fixing the big power lines at the moment, and they've laid this massive cable. So I presume it's about that time of the year where they replace the cable. So it's going over a lot of roads, and I thought, well, we have to go over this one if we want to get across anywhere. So we thought we'd just take a gamble. We made it, of course, we were alive, but it was hilarious. At the same time as we drove over the cable, I pretended that I was being electrocuted, and Sebastian started screaming. So it just shows that we've both got the same sick sense of humor, doesn't it, Sebastian? But we laughed for about 5 minutes that we did exactly the same thing without prompting each other.
Same scream,
and the same scream as well. We did the same tones and everything. It was hilarious.
bad for me.
Yeah, yes, Sebastian was screaming like a girl. It was very high pitched, like, but you know. Now we are going to pass some of those cars and those trucks again. They seem to be working down here, twin dams. We'll go past them relatively quickly, and ideally we're on our way towards Cheetah Plains to go and have a look and see if anybody's been walking around that side. Who knows, some of the Birminghams may have moved that way. Perhaps the Styx Pride, maybe Kuchava and Quarantine. That's of course what I'm hoping for this morning, but we'll just quickly zip past them here. Wow, by big trucks. My goodness, they're drilling in all sorts of things this morning. Good morning. Right, let's keep searching here. I don't know if we... I'm so naughty. And I could be one of the naughtiest ones in camp, actually. Okay, baboon pan. No Hosanna, no Shongile. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Let me actually just stop here. I did see some male leopard tracks this morning. They were going down Shubamu Road. They looked to be quite fresh. And then they crossed near the Pans, but I'm not sure if they did cross over Gowrie Main with all of the cars and things driving around. It was a little bit difficult to exactly see where those footprints were going, but I suspect that they were on their way south again. So it's a little bit sad, but we'll keep checking. Now, we need to go through the Mulwati. I know that there's many gremlins here, and Steph is not anywhere near the spot just yet to help me taekwondo my way through it. Right, well, okay, well, what we'll do now is we're going to start racing towards Cheetah Plains, hopefully find something amazing, but let's go back across to Tristan and get an update from him.
Well, I hope that there is something amazing for Tayla on Cheetah Plains. She's warning that she hasn't seen too many leopards around, so I'm hoping she'll bump into a leopard somewhere along the line, which will be quite nice for her. And other than that, we're just bumbling. We're looking around, trying to see, driving in different areas, seeing what there is out here. And the lions are still roaring to the south of us. They don't sound like they're very far, but they are on Little Gari somewhere, and I'm hoping just maybe, I'm going to keep listening out for them, but maybe they do decide to come back northwards, and we might then find them somewhere on our side. It sounds like they're around the Mulawati Baboon Pan area, but we'll see. Let's see how we go, and maybe we get lucky and they do come back. So for now, we're just going to do some sort of loops in the area and just see if we can't find any tracks for these two royals, Hosanna and Shongile, but I think Hosanna's gone south from what Tayla was telling me, that she had tracks for a male leopard going south around Shabamu Gari main area, so I think he's gone to the south, whereas Shongile, we haven't seen too many signs of her the last few days, so I'm hoping maybe she heads back and comes in and we get to see her again. I'm sure she's doing just fine. She was seen the other day, so it's not that she's missing or anything like that. She just hasn't spent too much time on our side in the last few weeks. But it's going to be interesting to see. I haven't heard any updates on that mating pair that was seen yesterday on Little Gari, so Tingana and that unknown female. I haven't heard anything further on that, so it would be interesting to know where they ended up. So I'm just checking along Mamba and checking around the sort of eastern side of Djuma in case they came north from Little Gari and have headed back into this area, and maybe we can get lucky with them. But so far there is very little sign of any leopard footprints around, and driving into the sun is also not easy to see exactly what's going on. I'm just scanning around here. This used to be another road that Karula used to use quite often, so we still live in hope that she might make an appearance, and that's why driving in these areas seems to make a lot of sense. And maybe we just get lucky and she does arrive somewhere. And imagine how amazing that would be if she did pop out just in time for Mother's Day. It would be such a Karula thing to do, so I wouldn't be surprised if she did. But I would be very, very overjoyed. We were watching some clips. Oh, hello little Steenbok. Don't run, stay there. That's a little male Steenbok. I'll get back to Karula in a moment. Oh no, don't run away. So that is the smallest antelope that we get out here. That is a fully grown beast of a male. So he's as big as they get, and you can see he's got his little stubby horns on top, and they are really one of the cutest little animals out here. I know Dave, our cameraman, or one of our cameramen, he really likes them. He was telling me yesterday that he thinks they're very cute. And you can imagine what a baby Steenbok must look like. They are incredibly beautiful animals. And you notice that they have really large ears in sort of relation to the size of their head. And the reason for that is, being such a small antelope, it's very low in the grass, and very often it actually can't see over the top of the grass. So it uses those ears to be able to listen to what's going on and detect any predators that could be around. Now in this area, predators that a Steenbok needs to worry about the most is probably wild dogs. Where we are now, cheetah will hunt them quite extensively as well, but very few cheetah pass through the area that we're in. And then you'll find that leopards do go after them from time to time, and then martial eagles and pythons are the other two big predators of Steenbok. So they have to be quite careful. There's sort of threats from everywhere. They've got it from low down on the ground to the big cats to aerial assaults as well, so it makes life quite tough. But these guys are very, very fast and very agile, and they can turn on a dime, and so often they can get out of the way quite quickly. Now the interesting thing about Steenbok is that these guys really are not reliant on water in any way. So you'll find Steenbok in the middle of the desert, in the Kalahari, and quite far from water, and that's because they're able to get the water from the vegetation that they eat, as well as the dew in the morning. So now when the grass is still quite wet, they feed off the grass. There's lots of moisture there, and they'll get that and be able to then survive. Now, our little Steenbok is carrying on feeding, and while it does that, let's go across to Stefan, who's playing with a rather large beetle that likes to roll around in dung.
So just the same as Tristan's lilac-breasted roller that he showed you just now, as you came to us, the dung beetle disappeared into this hole. But it does allow me to introduce this particular dung beetle. This is the largest dung beetle that we find at Djuma, and in this part of the Kruger Park. And what I want you to do is pull your fist, and if you're not a particularly large boned individual, the dung beetle is as large as your fist. So generally, ladies, that is a massive beetle. I mean, it's as big as an apple, and it's inside right here, right now. Now, what it will allow me to do is tell you a little bit about the coprids, the dung beetles, until it comes out. So it'll come out in about 30 seconds or so. Generally speaking, dung beetles are classified into how they work the dung, how they manage the dung. The very common one, the one that is sort of quintessentially African, is the one where you see a female holding tightly onto a ball and the male rolling the ball away. That's called a telecoprid dung beetle. So they're classified into what they do with the dung. Dung beetles that roll their dung balls away are called telecoprids. You then get endo and ectocoprids as well. So an endocoprid is a dung beetle that lives within the dung ball itself. An ectocoprid is a dung beetle that produces the dung, or works the dung directly underneath the dung pile. And that is exactly what this dung beetle is doing. It's too big to roll a ball. The ball would be the size of a soccer ball. So what this particular dung beetle does is excavate a tunnel. Now I want to show you how much sand has been excavated here. This is the amount of sand that has been excavated from below this buffalo pat. It's a massive amount of sand. You're looking at a tunnel with a chamber at the end, at least this big. What the dung beetle then does is she and he come out, it's a pair, and they pull all the dung that they can into that hole. So that all this dung from this buffalo will eventually go underground. That then obviously saves it for themselves exclusively, barring a couple of parasites onto that particular dung. And they then, here she comes. Awesome. So she's going to come out of the hole now. Let's see if I can just move that for you. Look at the size of that dung beetle. She then doesn't roll a ball. She's just collecting the dung. See where she goes? She'll pull it into the hole, and then she goes and stores it at the end of the chamber. When she's got enough, she'll lay her eggs there, and then she actually waits at the entrance. There's a sort of parental care given to her babies, and she'll live in this hole for a bit. Isn't that awesome? Just have a look at that. So now obviously my hands are not the smallest hands. I don't have particularly big hands, but you can see there's some scale. How, I mean, that is that wide from leg to leg. Chris, you've asked, is a beetle an insect? Yes, an insect. This is it's an arthropod, or a jointed-legged insect. And further down, it is a beetle, a coleoptera, meaning hard shell as far as I can gather, and it refers to the wing covers. These are elytra here. Normally insects that fly have got 4 wings. In the case of these beetles, the first 2 wings are hard, and then they've got big membranous wings underneath there that they use to fly with. And this dung beetle can fly. It's one of the largest insects that can fly, in actual fact. Where are you going? She's now cleaning out her hole a little bit. See if she can fetch some more of this dung. I don't quite know what she's doing. These are predominantly nocturnal beetles, believe it or not, and I don't really watch these beetles at all. You normally see them flying around lights in a campsite, and I see them in their holes, but to actually witness one doing what they're doing here is pretty rare. You're very privileged watching this at the moment, so definitely look and learn. This is not a very common thing to see out of here. Now, we're just practicing, obviously, ad breaks at the moment, so if you'd bear with me while I just put in some practice. So some of you will be going away for a break at the moment. Please don't go anywhere. When you come back from your break, of course, we have more of these beetles and things like it, as well as the rest of my colleagues doing what they are doing. Alright, so that's practice over. I hope I didn't mess that up too much trying to do too many things and all at once. And there you can see her pushing that dung ball. So you see not a large amount of dung. She collected it. Now using that spade in the front and her feet, she'll now push that dung ball down her hole and pat it solid underneath the ground. So Ali, you wanted to know if a dung beetle ate anything else beside dung? Absolutely not, Ali. They just feed on dung. So they feed on dung, they breed in dung, they live on dung. It's dung for a dung beetle is ecstasy. I don't know if you know, if there was a sort of cosmic way of doing things, I would imagine that when a dung beetle sees a pile of dung or smells a pile of dung, it would be like a kid getting an ice cream after not having one for a bit. I can imagine wild excitement and much joy every time they see some dung. A little bit different from the way we think about dung in any case, but I can only imagine that there has to be some joke or some pleasure going on with these dung beetles. Anyway, we're going to leave this giant dung beetle to her ministrations, and we're going to carry on with the game drive. Now, Starlight, you wanted to know if these dung beetles, before we go at least, Starlight, you wanted to know if these dung beetles only ate herbivore dung. No. This particular species of dung beetle does only eat herbivore dung because of the sheer volume of herbivore dung available, and most of the bigger dung beetles here do. But there are dung beetles here that specialize in the dung of predators. There's one here, it's slightly more elongated than our plum-colored dung beetle, slight bit of a sheen on it, and almost exclusively only lives in the dung, the very high protein dung of carnivores, lion, leopard, hyena, and others. And they are specifically attracted to lights around the camp, and quite often, until you've learned to specifically ID these particular dung beetles, you'll pick them up to move them, and they leave the most unbelievably disgusting smell on your hands. So one of those things about the benefits of being able to identify these types of dung beetles out here. All right, Tayla has got some giraffe to show you. We're going to leave this dung beetle alone, catch up with you a bit later.
We seem to be having a morning filled with giraffe, but we've moved away from the taller ones, and we've come down to some giraffe that are slightly smaller in size. We've got 3 of them, and the one on the right looks to be probably at about a year old, I would say, just from the height of it. And the other 2 are probably between 6 and 8 months old. Now remember, giraffe are born at quite a height already. They can stand, when they first take their first steps, at 6 foot tall, which is pretty impressive. So I think that's quite amazing. That majority of the population in the world is not quite as tall as a newborn giraffe. Isn't that amazing? But these 3 have cuddled up together. The mothers are feeding just off into the distance, and this is quite common, of course. They form nursery groups, and they will feed just off to the side and out of view. And now, Marthy, as we're looking at these youngsters, and you're wondering if giraffe mate for life. No, they don't, actually. Giraffe are interesting when it comes to sort of herd animals, because unlike the others, they don't stay in a herd together forever. We call it temporary associations. So you'll get a group of females that could stay together for a long period of time, but it's also not unusual for them to go off and do their own thing and come back when they want. And the males also sort of just float through the herd, so there's no sort of permanent bonding. I suppose the bond between a mother and her calf would be quite strong, but even then it's sort of only temporary, because as that little one gets older, it'll start moving on and doing its own thing. So no, they don't mate for life at all. And it's only the biggest and the strongest bulls that would be allowed to mate with the females, and they need to, of course, find a girl that's an estrus. So just as the big elephant bulls are constantly wandering through and searching for females that are an estrus, the giraffe bulls will do something quite similar. However, they don't come into a period called must. So it's a slightly different, of course. But you are chewing away, aren't you? Yum, yum, yum. It's always my favorite watching giraffe, if you can get close enough, as they regurgitate a ball of cud. Watching it climb up of their long necks is always quite amazing to do. Now, Lorena, you said that you just love giraffe cheeks. I think do, especially now. We're going to watch the food come up. Yeah, there it is. And now it's got full cheeks again, just for you, Lorena. So I hope you took a good screenshot of those very chubby cheeks. Now, I wonder how many leaves a giraffe can fit into its mouth and chew it around. I'm sure you all played the game Chubby Bunny as a kid, when you'd put as many marshmallows in your mouth as you could. Of course, it's very dangerous, so don't do that without your parents' supervision. Welcome back, everybody. We're still sitting with these giraffe. They're just moving around and out of view, but hopefully we'll be able to find some more giraffe in a moment. Right, everyone, that was just me coming back from TV, of course, in case you have just joined us. Now, we are bumbling about. But actually, before I bumble anymore, yesterday we had an interesting question when I was on Bushwalk. I'm actually going to climb out over here. We had an amazing question where we were talking about animal tracks, and we were talking about buffalo and giraffe tracks, and I couldn't find a giraffe track. I think it was Laura that was asking the question. So let me go out in the middle of the road. Can you see me here? Can you see the ground here? So if you look over here at this track, you can quite easily see, and I was describing the track as sort of an iron shape, like an iron you iron clothes with, and you can see that just here. There it is. So it's quite sort of rectangular, but then rounded at the top and then square at the base. And let me see. Oh, okay, I mean, there's one here. How's this one? To the right of my. Is that better? So here's the track here. Sorry, I didn't realize that you couldn't see it. This is the track here. This is a small one, so this could be one of the youngsters that we've seen. And typically the males have much larger feet than the girls too. There's no massive. It's a half of one. Half of one. What about this one here? Is this too close to the car? This one's a good track, but I think. Is that one better? Okay, there we go. Let's try that again. So not quite as big as my shoe, but a big male giraffe track is normally around a size 7, maybe even a little bit larger. But like I said, I think this is either from a youngster or perhaps one of the females. But really easy to see that shape that I was talking about now. Okay, let me jump back into the car.